Home training is important. So let me tell you how I was raised. And in this case, I am telling you how to raise your kids. Do whatever you want to in the spring. Do whatever you want to pre-July 4th. But once we come off of Independence Day, off of the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, it's time to focus on what's important. And what's important, and I have an entire stack of it in my hand, is college football. We are high atop a radiant downtown Nashville, Tennessee, jam-packed as we always are on this Sunday, July 6th, the year of our Lord 2025, proudly brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. You hear the tick-tock, not the app, the actual sound of a clock, because a lot of you are on it. A lot of teams are on the clock this year. Some of you just have competitive pressure. Some of you outright need to win to keep your jobs. Everyone's got it to a certain extent, but I feel like we got about, I'd say 5 or 6 teams that really feel like they're on the clock this year. I feel like we've got to talk about weaknesses amongst some of the contenders. We did that the other night. We did it Tuesday night. We're going to do it again tonight. We got to tell the truth about Marcus Freeman on the show tonight. Someone asked me about influences on me. Yeah, of all people. We got that. We got bold predictions. It rolls on and on and on in July as we get ever closer to kickoff. They're watching us in Corpus Christi, Texas, Noonan, Georgia, Santa Rosa, California, Mobile, Alabama. Thank you guys so much. I told you, weird schedule. We're going to have another weird schedule coming up this week. Just, there's a lot of stuff moving around. It'll make sense very, very soon, but I'm just looking. See, I'm trying to tell you, but I can't hand over the mouth right now, and it happens to be my own. But bear with us. We're trying to keep as much normalcy around here as possible. Again, let me reiterate, all good things. Let's dive into the show tonight. Okay. I feel like some teams are really on the clock this year. Not all of them like, oh, you better win or you're going to lose your job, although some of these are. Maybe the first one, who knows? But I feel like some of these teams are just on the clock, and I wanted to talk about some of these tonight. So, like Auburn. I really feel like Auburn is on the clock this year. I really feel like Hugh Freeze got there, and to Auburn fans' credit, I thought they had as much patience as any fan base would have with a head coach in like major college football, SEC football, because they understood the cupboard was sort of bare. Hugh Freeze did not inherit some turnkey, ready-made winner. He didn't get what Kalen DeBoer got handed to him. He didn't get what Ryan Day got handed to him. So there was a lot of understanding, even in year 2. Still some understanding. This is year 3, and you've got to win. You've got to win. They went 6-7 first year, 5-7 second year. They got to win this year, and it's just a roll of the dice on Jackson Arnold. That's the long and short of it. Their over-under win total 7.5. They've got to go over that. If they don't, what are you selling? I mean, if they don't, like, what you're trying to package a vision. That's what they've been trying to do. Selling kids on what will happen. Come be a part of it. But 3 years of 7 wins or less, who knows what this year holds? They got to get it done, man. And then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, I think, is Penn State. There's no job security pressure on James Franklin. Anyone who suggests otherwise is outside their mind. James Franklin and Penn State have a unique situation here in that the dominoes have fallen into place in such a way that Penn State, despite the fact that they still really haven't gotten over the big game hump, they still haven't won the Big Ten lately. They won in the playoff last year, but they beat 2 teams that candidly they should have beaten, and then went down again when they sort of met their match, met their equal. Despite the fact that they haven't really accomplished any of those or cleared any of those hurdles that are put in their way and the criticisms that are thrown at them, despite all that, they're in a position to be considered a national title favorite this year. And yet there's some hesitation out there for people to buy into the idea that they could ever do that because they haven't. One of the big rules on our show, in fact, we told the lies of college football the other night, the biggest lies in the sport. One of them is people take have not to mean cannot. James Franklin has not won a title. To me, that's where the period goes. But for some people, the sentence continues. Because he has not won, he will not win. He cannot win. Well, I don't know if that's true, but that's what you're on the clock for. You can't just be a good, solid team this year. I don't know how else to put it. You can't just sort of be in contention but fall short against Oregon and Ohio State. Be just on the outside looking in of the Big Ten championship. Probably still make the playoff, but not really do anything in the playoff. They've got to do more than that. I don't know if that means go win a national title or it's a failure. I don't know if I go that far, but I think you'd know it. Like if Penn State, for example, if they were to beat Oregon, go play a dogfight down to the wire game against Ohio State and lose, but then they beat them in the rematch in Indianapolis, and then they go and they go to the national title game, even if they don't win it. That's a big season. That is a season above and beyond anything James Franklin has done in a long time. I would take that. That's what they're on the clock to do, at the very least. Bama's the same way. Anyone who tells you Kalen DeBoer would have a lot of job security pressure if he only won 9 games again, they're wrong. They're wrong. But that wouldn't stop a lot of people from yelling it. They yelled it about Ryan Day last year. If he doesn't beat Michigan, he ought to be out of here. Well, he wouldn't have been fired. But that didn't stop people from yelling it. So if Kalen DeBoer only wins 9, if he barely misses out on the playoff again, they'd yell it. That's not the kind of on the clock I'm talking about. The kind of on the clock I'm talking about is no one matters, or no one cares, rather, that it took you a second to find your footing in year 1. We saw the same thing you saw. We saw guys like Caleb Downs leave via the portal. We saw the quarterback position be, way, way up and down, kind of schizophrenic in production last year. Your results were tied to that. You had what you had in year 1. He's recruited a couple of really good classes. I mean, they're on a roll. They've been on a roll in recruiting this cycle. They didn't have any guys leave for the portal this past cycle. Like, there are a lot of indicators pointing up. Now the results on the field need to bear that out. And this is probably like the least on the clock team out of the, 6 I'm talking about, but yet Bama fans will tell you he's got everything he needs. It's not like Saban hung on 5 years too long and left the cupboard empty and you had to rebuild it from scratch. He left and left you a ton of athletes, and I mean, program's never been in a better place, and you need to win. If it takes you a year, okay, but you need to win. That's fair. I don't even think DeBoer thinks that's unfair. That's fair. At Clemson, Dabo's as rock solid as it gets in terms of job security. This team's on the clock, kind of like Penn State. This Clemson team is on the clock because they've got a unique opportunity to do something they haven't done in a few years. It feels like forever ago. Now that we looked at Clemson and said, yeah, I could pick that team to win the national title, but I'm telling you, I guess I need to look over here. I'm telling you, I would pick this Clemson team to be a favorite to win a national championship. I'm not ready to make the actual prediction yet, but I could see that coming out of my mouth in a couple of months. So it's not title or bust, but they do need to put themselves in position. They need to climb high enough on the ladder where the belt is within reach. And at that point, you reach, and if you grab it, you grab it. If you don't, at least you put yourself within reach. At the very least, this team has to put itself within reach this year. Not that it would be the end of the world. See, there's categories to this. There's layers to this. Dabo's fine. Clemson's fine if they don't win. If they were to go 9-3 this year, they're fine. It's just that the window for this team and maybe the window for this program closed because I'm not so sure that it's just reload for Clemson right now. Could be wrong about that, but it doesn't feel that way. To me, it feels like they've built towards this year for a few years now. The wide receiver positions there, NFL guys at every level of the defense. I really just, if you hear this, you hear that on the podcast. That's how Clemson used to play defense. And I mean, I go back and watch that Louisville game last year. That is not the way they played defense. Well, you go hire Tom Allen. You hope to rectify that. You got your quarterback there. You got your offensive coordinator again. Best wide receiver room you've had in a long time. So I think they're on the clock competitively. Oklahoma's a different story now. Oklahoma is very much Brent Venables and Oklahoma have to win this year or they could be looking for a new head coach. And I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. I don't know how you say otherwise. I mean, he's had 3 years now. This will be his 4th year. There's no sanctions there. There have been some questionable hires, and then to their credit, they hit the dump button, and now at offensive coordinator, you go and you get Arbuckle and his quarterback from Washington State, and that's who you've hitched your wagon to. You don't get to screw up multiple coordinator hires. At this level, you just don't get to do it. The stakes are too high. The pay is too high. All of that's fair. It'd be unfair if someone else screwed everything up and then you tossed it in Brent Venables' lap and said, hey, I know we just made a mess in your lap there. but you still got to win or else it's all going to be on you. That's not what happened. That's not what happened here. So this is totally fair. They've recruited good athletes there. They're going to be good defensively. They've elevated every year since he's been there. I got little doubt about that. Offensive line's got to be way better. Quarterback position's got to be way better. Offensive coordinator, the offensive product has got to be way better. They got a tough schedule to face. I don't think anyone is saying playoff or bust, but they better be noticeably improved this year. I think they will be, but they better be. They're on the clock for that. And USC, same way. None of this stuff is unreasonable. I mean, Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma several years ago for USC now. And he's been out there, and their record has regressed every year. That's reality. That's not an opinion, that's reality. Now, it's opinion when you talk about the whys, but it's reality that it's happened. Okay, so what are we asking? Well, we're asking for the defensive coordinator hire you made 2 years ago now to continue to pay off, and I think it will. I don't have any doubt about that. You got to be better on the lines of scrimmage. You are a quarterback guy, so Maiyava's got to give us good quarterback play. We got to be able to win games in a variety of different ways. And to be honest, USC ought to be able to score 45 if they need to, but they ought to be able to hold someone under 20 if they need to. That's that's the kind of team you're going to have to win anyway in major college football. What were they, 6-6, I think, in the regular season last year. So the one possession stuff, it's just got to be better. Got to be better. Again, this isn't win the Big Ten or you're out. I don't even know if it's make the playoff or you're out. It's not that. In fact, it's not that. I know it's not that. But they are very much on the clock to look a whole lot better than they did. That's the reality. And I think it's completely fair. It's his program. It's 100% his program. USC football is a total reflection of the thumbprint of Lincoln Riley now. We're brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. They are our friends. They are our presenting partner. You can get there in person, and if you can, you should get there in person. I know a lot of you probably visited them over the past week because a lot of us have been outdoors, and you can get pretty much everything you need. I know I get testimonials, I'd say 10 times a day minimum, about people going to Academy. Hey, you were right. I didn't know I could get this there. Well, why not? I told you could. Now, the other sad testimonial I get is I don't have an Academy near me, but you do have internet near you. Okay? We'll work to rectify the brick and mortar situation. But in the meantime, you got academy.com right there at your disposal. And friends, you need their stuff anyway. You're going to buy grilling equipment. You're going to buy clothes. You're going to buy bats and balls. You're going to buy all that stuff anyway. Buy it at Academy and help the show in the process. Let's continue. Everybody can talk about strengths. What about weaknesses? All these teams you see at FanDuel in the top 10, the odds to win their conferences, compete for the national title this year. Well, everyone knows the strengths. What are some of the weaknesses of these teams? Texas is way up there. I mean, Texas is one of the favorites in the odds market right now to win the SEC, to win the whole thing. So what are the potential questions? Let's not even use weaknesses. Let's just unknowns, questions. Where could it go wrong? Everyone's going to talk about Arch. Honestly, we've talked about him so much beyond the quarterback position, just backfilling on the lines of scrimmage at Texas, especially on the defensive line. Specifically the interior there. The edge is fine, man. They'll have one of, if not the best pass rushes in the country. But this is 2 years in a row now you're having to go on the interior of that defensive line because you're so good. You're sending guys off to the NFL, and they have got to have portal guys hit. They're counting on them to start. Then on the other side, on the offensive line, you lost 4 guys with 40-plus starts. But again, this is Texas. And they just stack big bodies. So it's not automatically a weakness if you're losing a bunch of guys. In fact, it's a sign that you're developing and recruiting right, that you're losing a bunch of guys. But all that plus a first-year starter at quarterback, that's not a weakness, but it is very much a question. And unlike some teams, they don't get to ease into their schedule. They play Ohio State to start the year. What about Oregon? The Oregon Ducks won the Big Ten last year. They were the number 1 overall seed in the playoff. The quarterback they did it with is gone. They got a portal, a new one in. portal guy at running back, portal at wide receiver, portal at tight end. Those guys are gone. Well, some of them are portal, but those guys, those difference makers are gone. And Evan Stewart's hurt, and you just wonder, is everything going to fall into place? They had to make big moves on the offensive line, had to go get 2 tackles, and one of them will play tackle, maybe one of them will be interior, but 3 of their 5 offensive line starters are going to be from the portal. And go back to the wide receiver position for a second. Without Evan Stewart, who's their bona fide wide receiver 1? Maybe they figure that out in camp. Maybe it's a situation where you look and they got 4 guys over 500 receiving yards, but no one with 1,000, or maybe a guy just clearly emerges. But the point is, there is a lot of unknown there. There are a lot of questions. I got no problem blindly believing in Oregon, but that doesn't mean there aren't questions there. What about Miami? Go as far away from Eugene as we could possibly get. Carson Beck. Okay, so the health thing, we'll find out. We'll find out. Like, he's been throwing for a while, so we're led to believe he's healthy physically. Mentally, this guy thought he was going to be playing in the NFL this time last year. This guy was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at Georgia this time last year. He didn't win the Heisman. It didn't work out at Georgia. He's in Miami now. Had a lot of off-the-field headlines about him. Where's his head at? Because if it's in the game, he can do what Cam Ward did last year. He can go down there and make a new name for himself, vault himself right back up the draft board. He could do all those things. He could do all those things. Will he do all those things? And then beyond that, who's he throwing the ball to? They lost, I think, their top half dozen pass catchers from last year. Who's he throwing the ball to? Those portal guys have to hit. They got to hit. And then on the other side, the defensive backfield specifically, they were so bad at giving up explosive plays last year. They got Corey Heatherman from Minnesota as their new defensive coordinator. Miami is another team, if you look at their schedule, that does not get to dip their toe into the season. It is, boom, Notre Dame, week 1. They got USF in week 3 that's not easy, and then boom, Florida in town. Week 4 at Florida State, week 5, Louisville. There's a bye week in between the Florida and Florida State games, but it's not a backloaded schedule. And so whatever we're asking here, they've got to have those answered. They got several losable games in the first month of the season, so they got to have those answered. And also, I want to go to the Big 12 for a second. Texas Tech, on a lot of people's radars. Texas, on mine too, Texas Tech. The general question there, the general unknown there is there's just so much new. This team could be all world this year, or it could be really, really wobbly out of the gate because, you know, there's a difference in a bunch of individuals and a team. And we've seen one time in the portal era a team get put together that was playoff caliber. It was Florida State a couple of years ago. They just missed out, but if it was a 12-team playoff, they would have been in, clearly. Texas Tech is trying to do that. And I just find it so fascinating that they're going to go up against teams like Arizona State, which is, you know, a lot of cohesion, a lot of returning production. Kansas State's kind of that way, like Iowa State. All these other Big 12 schools, they sort of recruit, they're developmental, they're not really heavy on portal guys. And if they are, it's mainly to provide depth over going and getting proven starters. And Texas Tech did the complete opposite. And they allowed 35 plus 8 times last year. So defensively, they got to get better. They got new coordinators on both sides of the ball, and yet they're right there in the preseason odds to win the Big 12. They got an over-under win total of 8.5. There's a lot expected out in Lubbock. I am included in that, but there's also a lot of unknown. That's why God makes you play the games, I guess. Moving along. Third show in a row, I do want to give credit to our friend Cream Soda at Zevia, of course. Our favorite zero sugar soda here. Cream Soda took it personal. I mean, I've never, since Michael Jordan himself, I've never seen something taken as personal as Cream Soda Zevia took our sudden love affair for orange creamsicle Zevia. Not that I'm not still consuming it, but I mean, Cream Soda has dominated the show. I think it's safe to say over the past couple of weeks. So it's good to see you back. And it's competition. We foster an atmosphere of competition around here, and that includes our drink partner. We got a question about Ryan Day that at first I thought was crazy. In fact, there's the word there. Tommy from Akron hit me up. He said, am I crazy to think that there's still a lot of pressure on Ryan Day because of the Michigan losing streak? No, you're not crazy at all. This is where college football is over here and any other sport is over there as a concept. If you win a championship, a national championship in any other sport, the word pressure is not even in the galaxy of conversation about you the following year. Repeat, maybe, complacency, reload or rebuild. No one's talking pressure. And we're not talking job security pressure with Ryan Day or anything like that. But I believe rivalry games, I believe rivalries are the most important part of college football. I believe beating Michigan is the most important role that you have as the head coach at Ohio State. Above winning the conference, above winning national titles, this is my personal worldview in college athletics. My personal college football worldview is that if you're the head coach at Ohio State, your job's to beat Michigan, and then the Big Ten can be won, and then the national title can be won in that order, but beating Michigan's number one. And he hadn't done it in several years now. So if you're asking me, is there pressure on him? Absolutely there's pressure on him. I don't care if they won the national title by 100 last year. That's almost like its own conversation. The national title picture is its own conversation. The Michigan game is a season. It is its own season. I'd say the same thing if the head coach at Michigan had lost to Ryan Day 3 years or 4 years in a row, going on half a decade in a row. I don't care what else you've done. You have failed several times consecutively in your most important role. And I think he's one of the best in the game. Like, I overflow with respect for Ryan Day. Overflow. I could not think any more highly of the guy. But I'm not saying anything he doesn't know. In fact, I think Kirby Smart and Ryan Day are two of the most brutally honest coaches that we ever sit down with when it comes to their assessment of their job, their assessment of their program. Dude, you don't even have to say this to Ryan Day. He'll say it for you. He knows. He knows the deal about being the head coach at Ohio State. So my point in saying this would make no sense to anyone else is if you were the head coach of the New England Patriots or whatnot, it doesn't matter how many times you lose to the Jets in a row. If you're winning the AFC, like if you're playing for or winning a Super Bowl, no one's talking about your record versus the Jets. That's because the NFL is not college football. In college football, they're just different compartments. They don't even have to touch each other. Like, they don't have to overlap. You can go win a national title and have still failed in your most important role as the head coach somewhere. If that somewhere is a place like Ohio State. So I don't care if that doesn't make sense to anyone else. And I'm not one of these crazy people. Well, it's wrong for me to cast aspersions. I'm not one of these people who was ever yelling, you got to get him out of there. If he doesn't beat Michigan, you got to get him out of there. I wasn't that last year. I was not that. I thought it was a little bit off the rails. But at the same time, there's no one who places more of a premium on winning rivalry games than me. I literally think it's the most important thing that you can do as a head coach. I literally prioritize it above winning the conference and the national title. That's how imperative it is to me that you win rivalry games. So, to a casual college football fan, to an agnostic sports fan who just like looks at college football from afar, that will sound crazy, but that's okay. They don't understand this world. That's fine. I don't ever try and go in the world of tennis and ask, wait, why is the scoring 15, 30, 40? What does love mean? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, that's okay. Maybe their sport's not for me. Maybe this sport's not for you. If it makes no sense to you that there could still be a lot of pressure on Ryan Day, even after you just won a national championship. But I'll tell you who it does make sense to, Ryan Day. I bet you it makes sense to him. They're watching us in Elk Grove, California, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Bloomington, Indiana. We appreciate everyone for for being tuned in. It looks like I just wadded their towns up. No, I wadded the Post-it note up. The towns just happened to be there. Oh, this is a fun question someone asked. Patrick from West Newbury, Massachusetts. I would assume up there they would say West Newbury, but I think that's crazy. Just like strawberry is crazy. No, no, no. And don't even get me started on caramel versus caramel. Anyway, Patrick said, who were some of your influences in terms of getting into college football media? I don't hear anyone like you, so I'm curious. I hope you don't hear anyone like me. It's probably in everyone's best interest, Patrick. No, so I could answer this two ways. There were people when I was a kid that I heard outside of the boundaries of college media or even sports media that always struck me. As I got a little bit older, I always thought Colin Cowherd, when he first got to ESPN radio, really set a tone that was different than anything else I had ever heard. It was the first time I ever started listening to sports talk radio in a consistent manner. It connected with me. I mean, he was the only one really talking college football at a national level, so that's probably why it connected with me. But I also remember just like the theater of the mind aspect that he was so good at, the community building that he was really good at. So, that guy got me through several early morning shifts at the warehouse. He was my bridge between unloading the Southeastern freight truck, stocking the shelves. Finally, we got to our lunch break about the time he hands it off to the early afternoon show. But then as it got real to me that maybe I'll be able to do this for a living, or maybe I at least want to roll the dice. I want to bet on myself. I want to take a shot. There were two shows that were already in the space that I was really paying attention to. I've talked about them before. One of them that I used to listen to, I still listen to, but I listened to religiously, was The Solid Verbal with Ty Hildebrandt and Dan Rubenstein. And those guys were doing what I wanted to do. They weren't necessarily like working for any big corporation, any big media company. It was their show. It was unique unto anything else in the space. There wasn't a lot of other options in the space yet. That would soon change. But I was heavily influenced by those guys, not so much stylistically. Like I knew I've got my way that I'd like to do it. I think the things I think. I talk the way I talk, all that stuff. But I listened to them, and at the time I was, don't let Savannah State hear this, but I was dating a girl who lived up in Atlanta. I was still down in Columbus. So I had an hour and a half commute each way if I was going to go see her. So that's when I would listen to Solid Verbal. And you feel like you know those guys and you've never met them. And I remember thinking to myself, that's what you have to establish. That I feel like I've got a relationship with these two dudes. I've never met them. I don't even know what they look like. At the time, I didn't. And so that influenced me, and the guys at College Football Nerds influenced me, both of whom were at the wedding last month. What a circular, not quite circle of life. That's not what they meant at all in The Lion King, but it was kind of a full circle moment, I guess. But I remember talking to them. I was looking at their YouTube channel back then. I was thinking, man, dude, if we could ever get like a fraction of the subscribers they have. But more than that, I was thinking, these guys are talking math in a way that I don't think I could ever talk, but it makes sense to me. And that influenced me. Because I remember, man, most of the stat type stuff, most of the data-based stuff, it loses me in 3 nanoseconds. I don't have the attention span for it. And those guys were really good at it. And, when you would comment on their channel, they would comment back, which is something I still try and do as much as I can. But those two, it's 4 guys, but those 4, they heavily influenced me. They're both doing their stuff today. Like, I highly recommend Solid Verbal and College Football Nerds. You could do me a big favor if you go check both of their shows out. All right, we have a very, very important exercise that we've been doing on the show. I want to continue it tonight. We've been doing this exercise for a little while where we look at teams and we look at the record from last year, and we just got to call our shot now. Throw your dart at the board. Are they going to be better this year or worse this year than they were last year? I want to start with Ole Miss tonight. Ole Miss was 9-3 last year. Their over-under's 8.5 if you're interested. 9-3 last year. Should have made the playoffs. It's their fault they didn't. I think they'll be worse this year. If I had to guess record-wise, I think Ole Miss may fall off a game compared to what they did last year. I think they'll still be good to excellent offensively. I'm a big believer in Austin Simmons. There's nothing you need to sell me on there. The defense is a pretty big question mark for me. They're going to have regression. We talked about that in the previous show. There will be regression. It's how much does it fall off? I don't think that portal class had the same pop that it did a cycle before. And so because of that, I look at games like the LSU game, going to Georgia and Oklahoma back-to-back. South Carolina after that. There's no bye. Like, it's at Georgia, at Oklahoma, South Carolina. They got Florida late in the year. I'm asking myself, could they lose 4 of those games? And I think they could. So it's not something I'm betting on. I don't feel that strongly about it, but I slightly lean worse than 9-3. And I hope that's not the case, because at that point you ask, man, did Ole Miss miss their best shot to do something in the playoff by missing it entirely? Next up, SMU. 11-1 last year. Yeah, you got to go worse. I mean, just we're asking what's more likely. It's far more likely they're worse. They got a tougher schedule this year than they did last year. We were talking about them. I mean, we were talking about them as being the prime sleeper contender merely because of schedule. We almost labeled them that sight unseen because of how fortuitous their schedule setup was last year. So 3 of the top 4 wide receivers are gone. Schedule gets a little bit tougher. Defensive tackle, question. Edge, question. They had to go to the portal. Not that they're the only ones who had to do this, but they had to go to the portal to backfield defensively. They had a top 10 rush defense last year. Are they just going to do that again? So if they go 10-2, I'm right. Like, they could go 10-2. They could be playing for the conference title again, and I'd be right. So I'm going to go worse for SMU. For Nebraska, this is important. Someone go wake Compton up. William, Nebraska, I am ready to predict. I am ready to back with my own money that Nebraska will be better than 6-6 this year. Okay? It's Matt Rule. It's year 3. You know the science behind the Rule 3, the Rule of 3. TM, trademark. That's mine now. Dylan Raiola with better options. That's what I'm thinking about. Now, I don't love that Tony White's gone. I just need him to hold the rope defensively. Again, we're not trying to go 10-2 or 11-1 here. I'm trying to figure out, how does Nebraska win 8 games? 7 or 8 games. That's where they should be, at least, this year. If you look at the schedule, as many will start to do this time of year, when do they play Ohio State? Oh, they don't. Well, let me see, where's Oregon here? Oh, Oregon's not there. Well, where's the tough road games? Michigan? No, they get them at home. Oh, man, that trip to USC is going to be tough. Oh, wait, they get USC at home as well. Dude, no one wants to go to Iowa at the end of the year. Oh, Iowa comes there. They got a game at Penn State. Elsewhere, where's the road trip that I'm supposed to be scared of? So, you know what? They better win more than 6 games. Their over-under win total is what, 7.5? Yeah, they do. Will Compton and Matt Rule better not screw this up. Like, it's got to happen. I've been accused of Nebraska slander for, predicting anything less than the Big Ten championship game appearance. No, not quite that bullish yet, but they gotta do better than 6-6. Now, elsewhere in that rough portion of the country are my Iowa State Cyclones. Big 12 runners-up last year. Things just didn't go our way in the conference title game. Shame on you, Kenny Dillingham. They went 10-2 last year. There is not a bone in my body that's about to publicly state that Iowa State will be worse than that this year. I don't care what you put in front of me. I will plug my ears with both index fingers and shout, la, 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 can't hear you, as long as it takes, or until I lose my voice. I'm Team Rocco Beck all day. Quarterback, still there. Head coach, still there. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, still there. Top third of the country in returning production. Top third. It's just a stat we're throwing around now. It is a navigable schedule. There's no Texas Tech on there. There's no Baylor. There's no Utah. They got Iowa at home. Candidly, I think they do better in their house, but whatever. They get Arizona State at home. Brigham Young's at home. Again, that's not a tough road slate. So 10-2, I could see it. I could see it. And you know what? Maybe 11-1 is not out of the realm of possibility. But as we all know, Iowa State has now established themselves as a perennial contender. Okay, so nowadays in Ames, we talk about 9 or 10 wins. That's the floor. Matt Campbell will appreciate this. They love expectations up there. They love it. Look, the expectation it's okay to have any time of year is Quick Trip's going to be there for you. They welcome that, okay? You expect them to have cold brew on tap. They welcome that. There's never any complacency. They're not closing, okay? The pumps will work. The cold brew on tap will work. And if it doesn't, I don't want to be held responsible, but I'm pretty sure it'll work. And they'll have food in there and they'll have snacks in there. And you know what else they'll have? They'll have our back. We need to go on the road for a tour this fall. They got us. We just went to, 16 places this spring on the Speaker Series tour. They had us. They're the exclusive fuel provider of Pate State. This university is entirely fueled by Quick Trip in every way imaginable. So thank you, Quick Trip. Let's continue. Question season. It's big question season, in college football. And I got a question tonight from one of you that I've chosen to answer. One of you said, hey, I got a biggest question for you this year. How many SEC and Big Ten teams will make the playoff? This was the hot topic of conversation around Halloween and beyond last year. I just spit on myself. So last year it was 7. 7 of them made it. There's not a lot of fluctuation here. Like 7 is probably the baseline. One of them's probably going to have 4. The other one's going to have at least 3. That's probably the way this goes. But the thing about it is, it's going to be like at least 7. 9 is the max because we still got 12 teams this year. And the ACC's got to have one. The Big Ten and the SEC, all right, they'll have several, but the ACC's got to have one. The Big 12's got to have one. The G5's got to have one. 9's the most you can get. And if Notre Dame doesn't make it in, then you can get 9. It's most likely they get 8. Like, I think that's how much they get in or how many they get in. So in the odds to make the playoff, 9 of the top 13 are from the Big Ten or the SEC. Yes, of course, they're going to load up the odds board, but they're also going to play each other. So they're going to knock a lot of each other out. But the question here is, okay, well, how many of them are good enough? And then the follow-up is twofold, I think, is the follow-up that I don't really know the answer to. Question number 1. Did SMU's performance last year, when they got benefit of the doubt and they got put in the playoff and then got smoked on the road at Penn State, does that sway the opinion making? My personal opinion is SMU deserved to be in the playoff over Alabama. So I agreed with the decision. I expected them to lose handedly to Penn State. I didn't get anything I didn't expect. They could lose by 100, and it doesn't change whether they should or shouldn't have been placed in. Like, your body of work is what determines whether you get placed in. Not, we're going to put you in and then see if you deserved it by what you do after the fact. That's not part of your resume. But I could see some people thinking along those lines, maybe even some committee members. And by that, I mean, if we do have another A-B scenario where there's a Big Ten or an SEC team that's maybe 3 losses versus an SMU, whoever that is this year, I could see a lot of people in the media making a bad faith argument that, big boy should be in over Cinderella over here. And then part B is they've got that new strength of schedule and strength of record metric and criteria that they're going to insert into the selection process. Does that tilt the odds in the favor of an extra team from the SEC, an extra team from the Big Ten? I think it will. My guess is they're going to have 8 in this year. Could be 5-3, could be 4-4, whatever, but I think they'll have 8 in. Let's move it merrily along. Nice, brisk pace tonight. I like where we're at. We were 2 shows ago, we did like a 90-minute show in June somehow. So we've been trying to tell the truth on a lot of head coaches, and I wanted to tell the truth about Marcus Freeman tonight. Could this have worked out any better for Notre Dame? We should have put the Notre Dame helmet on the set. It's right over there. I'm looking at it right now. Could this have worked out any better for Notre Dame. Remember a couple of years ago, Brian Kelly, he had been there for a long time. He's the all-time winningest head coach in Notre Dame history, and he didn't get fired. He chose to leave. He chose to leave. It hurt some people's feelings. It didn't hurt everybody's feelings, but they had, as it turns out, his backfill already in-house. Marcus Freeman was already there. And so Marcus Freeman does not go with him. Marcus Freeman stays. Marcus Freeman becomes the head coach at Notre Dame. He's never been a head coach before. So like Ohio State and like Georgia and like Oklahoma recently at that point, Notre Dame's going to roll the dice on a first-time head coach. And Marcus Freeman takes the job. And now, 3 years later, I think we can definitively look at Notre Dame football and say they're in a better spot than where Brian Kelly had them. And I doubted that would happen, by the way. Like, if you told me that was going to happen, I would have said, all right, I need to see it. I guess it's not impossible, but I'm going to need to see that. Well, you know what? I've seen it. And he's been there 3 years, and you should still be seeing a sharp learning curve. Guy's in his late 30s, okay? That guy at a major program should be showing obvious flaws still. And you know what? You could throw out the Marshall loss, the Northern Illinois loss. It's not like they haven't been there. What I'm saying is it should be glaring. Really, if history's taught us anything, it should be glaring when you take a first-time head coach and give him a major job, period. But he's been a first-time head coach being given a major job in the most tumultuous era in the history of college football. And there have been bumps in the road, but the dude played for a national championship last year. And need I remind you, they came into the season, we thought their offensive line would be their weakness. And not only was it not, they got injured along the way on the offensive line. And still was the biggest testament to Marcus Freeman. The overall aura, the vibe, the identity of the team almost made it feel like it didn't matter how badly they got banged up. I'm watching Notre Dame, and at a certain point last year, you look and you say, oh, another lineman went down? It's Notre Dame. They'll just find a way. That is a place few programs rarely get to, but if you do get there, that's the best testament that you can give to a head coach, because that means head coach has done his job. What is his job? Marcus Freeman's not in the face of every offensive lineman in the weight room every day, but his strength and conditioning staff that he hired is. Marcus Freeman's not in the face of those guys on the field, but his offensive line and that staff that coaches his offensive line, they are. The development aspect, the psychological aspect, the mental and physical, every compartment that he's in charge of overseeing has been perfected enough to where that's the result that it's bearing. Okay? So then you ask yourself, well, where do they go from here? I think he's in an interesting spot right now. I think the truth is their recruiting has trended up, and it's trended up after they lost the general manager. And this is kind of a big thing people behind the scenes have been talking about in college football. Chad Bowden went to USC. It was a huge get for USC. USC recruiting has seen a big uptick. And the thinking was, well, USC's gain has to be Notre Dame's loss. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. The point is, you look at Notre Dame, and if you're looking for the lingering effects, the after effects of that, they're nowhere to be found, because as good as USC's doing, Notre Dame's killing it too. Notre Dame's on the path to maybe putting together the best class that Freeman's put together there. So, again, what you're talking about is you're talking about the very early indicators of, what great coaches have done in the past. What you've seen with great coaches is they build such a machine that the parts are interchangeable. You don't want to talk about people like that, because a program's only as good as the people. But if you got a strong program, it attracts the right people. So like one of the right people leaves, another of the right people comes right there in to replace him or her or whatever the case may be. Point being, again, most programs never get to that level. And here's what's crazy about that. You could look in the past and you say, man, like Nick Saban is the tailor-made example of that. Yeah, Saban did that at Bama. You know what else? is true about Nick Saban? Freeman's 39 years old. When Nick Saban was 39 years old, he was a decade away from taking the LSU job. So they're doing it. I mean, Marcus Freeman's starting to do this at a completely different juncture of his life than Nick Saban ever thought about doing it. Saban was at Toledo when he was 39 years old. Just to give you an idea of sort of how different the trajectory is for Marcus Freeman, like some other guy. Dan Lanning's this age. Like a lot of other guys are doing this. Maybe not at this level, though. I think when you look back on 2024, I think Marcus Freeman will benefit a ton from what 2024 was. You benefit from going to the national championship game because you finally have it to put in front of people's faces. The doubting Thomases, so to speak, that had to see it to believe it. Well, there it is. We went. I mean, we played for a national championship. And anyone who told you we couldn't do that again, they lied to you. So you get to say that, but you also get to continue to hold the carrot collectively over your program, over your players, over your staff, because you still got embarrassed last year at home against Northern Illinois. You still got to the dance, but you didn't get the job done there. So it's like this perfect combination of a proof of performance, but also there's no complacency because, like, what did you really accomplish? There's no hardware in the building. They can't win a conference, and they didn't win the national championship game. I guess you got some bowl trophies. They're playing for the big one. So, again, how could it have gone any better for Notre Dame? How could it be going any better? Also, Notre Dame, one of the favorites to win the national title this year. I know that because I have a FanDuel login, and they are the exclusive odds provider of our show, and that is where you can go if you feel motivated to put some money down on Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame winning the whole thing this year. You can do that at FanDuel. If you don't think they'll even make the playoff, you can also bet that at FanDuel. If you're interested in taking Notre Dame and laying the points against Miami in week 1, because yes, that's who they open with. You can do that at FanDuel. If you don't even bet, never have, never will, that's cool. You can go look. It's free to look at the odds over there. But I know a lot of you, you're coming off of your vacation. You know, this is what you've already flipped through the magazines now. Some of you sat on a beach this very week and you read all the magazines, and now you know what you need to know, or at least you think you do, and it's time to throw some money down. That's fine. That's the true test of how serious you are about your opinion. You ready to open that wallet and back it up? FanDuel's where to do it. And the wallet may be even fuller as a result. You know, that's the positive. That's the benefit of getting those numbers early. All right, let's continue, and let's wrap with what we've been wrapping with several shows in the spring and summer. It's bold prediction season, friends. And we got 4 of them tonight that are at least a 9 on the boldness scale. First up, from Los Angeles, California, as Steve Austin would say, USC wins the Big Ten. Well, that's a 9. That's a 9 on the boldness scale. It's not impossible. USC has the 5th best odds to win the Big Ten. It's not impossible. Okay? If they have a lot of close games and they just win them this year, that's how easy it is. It rolled off the tongue so easily, but I know it's a lot tougher in real life. Imagine how thin the air gets in November. If USC gets to that Nebraska game, they got a trip to Nebraska. Let's say they were to beat Michigan and Notre Dame, and they're undefeated going into Nebraska, and they got a bye week before they go in there. That point, that week, November 1st on, you know how long November would be? Nothing but conference games. You know how long November would be, and they got a trip to Oregon the second to last week of the year. Nobody associated with that program has done it at this point. Lincoln's done it, but like a lot of the other folks, they haven't felt it. So once they get on the tightrope, can they walk it all the way across? That's tough to do. That's tough to do. They got to win. They got to go to Indy and win the game too, by the way. So that's a 9. Next up, this would cause great consternation. Nate from St. Clairsville, Ohio, says he's a Longhorn in the heart of Buckeye country. His prediction, Arch Manning accounts for 4+ touchdowns in week 1. Texas beats OU, or Ohio State, my bad, by 21+. Give me a 9.75 on this. Now, nobody goes into Columbus, Ohio and does that by that margin. And I don't expect it to happen here. In fact, Ohio State's favored in the game. So I don't expect that to happen. But the reason I didn't make it a 10 is because there's so much newness for both of them, really. Either team winning by 3 touchdowns, which is just 3 plays, is not like out of this world crazy to me. It's very unlikely. Okay, but if you told me that Texas's pass rush just goes in there and creates a nightmare, and Julian saying in that pass offense, Brian Hartline calling plays for the first time, he just never gets in a rhythm, and Texas turns them over 3 times. Arch starts 3 different drives inside his 35-yard line. I could see that happening. I don't think it's going to. But like if you told me that's the way that game plays out, I've seen crazier things. I think we'll see crazier things this year than that. I mean, Vandy beat Bama last year, and the goalpost ended up in the Cumberland River. So don't tell me crazy can't happen. Next up, Jeffrey from Cary, North Carolina. Clemson becomes the first team since Fresno in 2013 with 3 1,000-plus yard receivers. Okay, this is only a 9. And we've been talking about how ridiculously underwhelming Clemson's wide receiver room's been for a while, but not now. They got one of the best in the country now, so this almost certainly would be Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco Jr., TJ Moore. Those have got to be your 3 1,000-yard receivers. They had 904, 708, and 651, respectively, last year. There was some injury thrown in there. So, if Cade Klubnik plays to the level I think he can, if those 3 guys are healthy most of the year, they may lack a ground game with enough punch. Brenning Stuhl's gone, so they don't probably have a premier tight end. I could see this being the way their offense functions. This could happen. It's a 9. It's very bold. It's not impossible. So it's so refreshing to be able to think that about Clemson. And lastly, oh no, this is from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Great horse racing there. I was there in February. Great horse racing there. Arkansas pulls off 2 top 10 upsets. I'm going to put a 9.25 on this. Arkansas is sneaky enough to do this. I'm just wondering, well, who are the top 10 teams? So there are possibilities on here. Ole Miss in week 3 could be a top 10 team. They got Notre Dame in week 5. That'll probably be a top 10 team unless there's upsets early. Tennessee week 7. I don't know. A&M week 8. I don't know. Auburn week 9. I don't know. LSU week 12. Possibly. At Texas week 13. Probably. Missouri week 14. Maybe. And then they got to beat 2 of those teams, and it has to be 2 teams that are in the top 10. That's just hard to do, man. Also, Arkansas is questionable this year. So I'm going to put a 9.25 on that one because I love Trey Biddy as much as I do. I appreciate it. Good show. Good solid show tonight. Good solid. A lot of you are sunburned. I know you've been having fun out there on the lake and whatnot. It's nice of you to stop by and we talk some college football. This month is going to be crazy. There's so many moving parts for us. We got Big Ten Media Days and SEC Media Days. We got folks going on vacation. We got other big things happening around here. So all the changes are great changes. But if the schedule looks a little weird for the next few weeks, that's why. Don't freak out. Good things to come. In the meantime, dinner. That's what's to come in the meantime. For producer Jesse, for director Bradley, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. Have a great rest of your evening, and God bless.